Alright, now we've got our blog module. We actually have the actual blog module working now. We're able to add, update, and delete text. We're almost done. The only thing that we need to add is a settings module. We really only need to add it here just for a learning experience. I noticed that the one thing that's missing on here, although it looks pretty good so far, is we don't have the date after each blog. And that's what people really like to know, is when did you go ahead and add that blog. And we've already stored it, so we really just need to know if we're going to pull it or not. I would say that wouldn't be an option. I would always have that, but for our purposes, we're going to make it an option, and we're going to add it to our settings, whether to show the date or just to show a daily blog. So let's take care of that by going into Visual Studio. And I'll close out some of the stuff I already have open, and we'll open up Settings ASCX, which of course is blank. And we'll open up the code behind in there. Now, when we deal with settings, unlike doing an add or an update or a delete, are something that need to be persistent. And right here, you're going to see how these things get persisted. We have two ways of persisting them. One is to persist them in the tab module settings table. When we persist them to this table, by the way, tab module settings is a table that already exists. It's part of DotNetNuke. Here it is. Open table, return all rows. And there's nothing stored there right now because I don't have any modules that have bothered that we've changed any settings on. But this is just a generic pool where we're going to have a module ID and a setting name, which is a key, and a setting value. And any modules that want to can take advantage of this tab module settings. So let me go back here. So if you want to store anything, they will be specific, and it spells it out here. They're specific to this instance, to just this module. If you wanted to store module settings for all instances of your module, then you will store them in the module settings table. Both of them work exactly the same way for the most part, which is you either store your setting in tab module settings and give it the setting name and value, or you store it in the settings table and again just get the setting name and value. It really doesn't matter which one we do here, whether you want to choose this one or that one to store it in module settings or tab module settings. I'm going to say, since we're probably going to set this for all the modules, no, let's go ahead and do it per module. So I'll say dim, I'm not going to call it setting 1 because it doesn't mean anything, so let's call it show date as string. Now I have two ways of doing this. I would really like to make show date, I'm just going to mark this out, into a Boolean, which we can certainly do. But then I'd have to still convert it, since it's going to go into a table there and be stored as a string eventually. I'm going to have to convert it to either true or false and then convert it back. I might as well just keep it string and store either true or false in the first place. Anyway, this is our load settings. So what it's going to do is actually load the settings and show them somewhere. We haven't drawn a place to select the setting just yet. And then we're going to store those settings as well. So I'm going to remark this out because we're not actually going to use the module settings. So we're just going to update tab module settings. So I'm going to say again, show date. And just make sure that all this jives. And here we have to put some kind of value, and we'll get that value in just a second. Let's go and add our controls for right now. I'm going to say again, table, border equals 0, width equals 100%. Great, now all that's formatted for us. And again, this is a great candidate for us to use our label control to make it look very professional. Since we've already done the label control over here in Blog Edit, let's go ahead and just pull that up. and we can pull the HTML right out of there. First, we know we need the label control to be registered, so I'll copy that. And we'll pop that in right here. And then let's copy, you know what, I'll take this information since it works well for us. And then just grab the label control itself and pop that in. Great. PL, here's the ID, and this time I'll actually choose the ID, PL show date. And then in this other side, what I will do is add a simple checkbox. And we'll add the text to this dynamically as well. We'll call this check show date. And I'll say that it's true. I'm just saving this, and it's just taking my computer a minute. There we go. And I also like to, and I haven't been doing this so far, I really should, but you should set the CS class whenever possible. Normal text box. We'll put that in there. Great. I don't think I need this settings ASCX anymore. Open. We'll close that. Wonderful. Oops. Sorry, I closed the wrong one. Alright. Again here, we should have our controls showing. Let me double check that they didn't pop in down here. Okay, there's our check show date. So what we're missing again is the label, and we do need to change one more thing. We go back into HTML. Remember that the label is going to be tied to a control name. Right now it says text title, which is wrong. We want it actually to be tied to check show date. And there you go. And then we'll add PL show date as .NetNuke UI user controls label control. Great. And let me just double check that I named that PL show date here. I did. Okay. So we're good. We should be able to display that now and pull a value. Now, one other thing we need to do is there's nothing actually going to show up either in the label or in check show date just yet because we haven't added anything to our app local resources. So if we open those up, and this time we're going to use settings ASCX. So we have PL show date text, which will be enable date display, and PL show date .help. Check this box if you would like the date to be displayed next to the title. And finally, we need for check show date .text show date. I'll hit Control S to save. At this point, it won't actually do anything because back up here in our update settings, it's going to expect some sort of value to be put into there. So what I'm going to say here is check show date to string. Okay, that should either put false or true in the box into the database. Now up here, we're actually loading the settings back, and showDate comes in as a string. So what I should do is say if showDate equals, actually if showDate to lower equals true, that way I'll make sure I get it, then check showDate checked equals true. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change this line just a little bit. Check showDate checked equals Seabury if showDate to lower equals true, then true, false. That's better. Just a little slicker. And I do have one slight error here, and I just want to make sure I have a 1, 2, 1, 2. It says that it's expecting here. Let me do a build real quick. Alright, we have that all set, and now what I did is I did a build while the tape was off for a second, and I'm going to reload this here. Now at this point we should have a working settings module, but I can tell you from experience we're going to have a quick problem, and I'm just going to show that to you so that you know what it looks like. So I'll go on blog and settings, and let's see if that'll load for us. There we go, and yep, sure enough we do get an error, and it says that object reference is not set to an instance of an object, and here is settings ASCX line 27. So let's go to take a look at that, and you'll see that line 27 in our settings ASCX is simply the process module load. The error message that we're getting here is uncharacteristically unhelpful. It's not really telling us where it blew up or why. And that occasionally happens. I'm going to show you just from experience. I've had problems with this particular part. Is the very first time that we tried to load showDate, we're trying to pull something in from tab module settings and then setting a checkbox on that value, but there is no value. We've never stored it before, so there's nothing to pull. So all we're going to do here is say if is nothing showDate, then showDate equals false. I'll do a quick rebuild on that, and then we'll reload this page and we'll try that out again. Great, our page is reloaded, so let's go ahead and take a look at the settings again and see if we were able to get rid of that error message. Sure enough, okay, now we can get into our module settings. Now, in order to get our localized string that asks, do we want to enable the date here, the best way to do it within the settings module is using something called a resource key. And if you've looked through the ASCX of some of the modules in DotNetNuke, you might have seen this resource key mentioned here or there. Now, we built this, so obviously it's not showing up, but I'm going to put it in there and show you how this works. What we're going to do is say resource key equals, and that's going to equal something. And now what needs to go in this resource key is whatever you have in the settings ASCX file. And in our case, it's check showDate .text. By the way, this .text part is assumed when you don't put it in a key on this side. I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me grab the name. Okay, so check show date. At least it should be assumed. So if I put this in there, what it should do, here I'm going to hit Control S and save. And go out and let's just go back and refresh this page for a second. Okay, settings. Now note that I didn't have to do a rebuild here. There you go, now it says show date. So what it did was it took that resource key, and then it goes out to our app local resources settings, looks for something called check show date. And I could have put text in there in our resource key if I wanted to, but like I said, it's assumed. It's up to you if you want to put it or not, as long as you know that it's assumed. And it picked up this check show date text, looks at it, says show date, and goes back and pops it in the correct place. So now we see that check show date is in there, and if we hit update, now we haven't actually put the date code in, so we're not going to see the date just yet, but we can go back and make sure that our little checkbox is saving properly. Settings, blog settings, sure enough, and our checkbox stayed. So all we have to do now is go and put in the code to show the date in the event that this checkbox is checked. Alright, so probably all that's really left to do now is to make sure that when this is checked, that we are showing a date on our blog page. And I think the easiest way to do that will be to go into our blog.ascxvb here and add another function. And again, remember to make this public, not private. Public function, we'll call this show date as string. And it would help if I could spell. Alright, public function show date. What we'll do, and just for safety's sake, I'm going to capture this. Okay, just in case anything blows up, we always wrap it in a try-catch. What I'll do, well, let's go back to settings ASCX, just makes it a little easier for me. We'll convert it into a string. And on this end, you don't put in tab module, you just put in settings like that. So what I'll say is, if the show date to lower equals true, then what we'll do is return the value, else we'll return nothing. And that should about do it. Now we just have to add it to our blog page. I think we said what we'll do is we'll put this right next to the title. So here's our title, NBSP, and then what we'll do is like this. Actually, let me just copy this to make life easier. Okay. Show date. And instead of showing date add, I'm going to show date mod because that'll be the most recent date that it was updated. And I'll say save, and I'm going to do a quick build on this. And if I didn't miss anything, then this should work. Let's go check this out real quick. And we'll just hit blog again. Great, and our page is refreshed, and sure enough, now we are showing the date right next to our titles. And we should be able to turn that on and off. Let's just make sure it does work. I always like to double check these things. Okay, blog settings. Turn that off, and our date should go away. Sure enough. See, I still have a little bit of a minus sign there, which is something I should fix. And that's easy enough. You know what, I don't even need the minus sign there. I'll make my life easy. I'll just space it out a little bit, and that'll be fine, and we don't even need to rebuild for that. We could also throw the minus sign into the function to make life easier on us. And there we go. And now our date looks nice, and we can turn it on and off. Wonderful. So at this point, we have a fully functioning blog. You know, there is one more thing I should do, which is log out. And we'll log back in as a guest. Here we go. Log in. In this case, I'm just going to log in as me because I just want to make sure that I cannot edit this from here, and sure enough, I can't. So at this point, we do have a complete blog module. All that's going to be left to do at this point is to package this up, and that's going to involve a few things as well, and then we're going to need to upload it to a website and test it to make sure that we wrote our SQL scripts correctly and that we packaged everything that's supposed to be in there and that everything is kosher going up. See you next time.